What if the world's richest man, Elon Musk, traded his fortune for rags and walked into an upscale restaurant unnoticed? Disguised as a homeless man, Musk's quiet entrance sparks a storm of whispers, judgmental glances, and outright disdain. Just as the cold stares reach a peak, one waitress defies the odds and makes a bold decision, unaware that her simple act of kindness is about to change her life forever. The sprawling expanse of his office, a panoramic testament to innovation and ambition. Elon Musk, the architect of tomorrow, a man who seems to bend reality to his will, was wrestling with a profoundly human question. It wasn't about algorithms or rocket fuel this time. It was about the messy, unpredictable nature of people. A disquieting thought gnawed at the edges of Elon's brilliance. Strip away the title, the billions, the relentless media frenzy, and what remains? How would the world treat, simply, a man down on his luck? The question wasn't just theoretical. It felt like an itch he couldn't scratch until he knew the answer firsthand. This wasn't some whimsical lark for the bored billionaire. For Elon, understanding the raw undercurrents of human behavior was as crucial as understanding the physics of space travel. He needed to see the world unfiltered, unburdened by the weight of his own persona. And so, the audacious plan began to coalesce. The transformation was painstaking, almost theatrical. Every detail meticulously considered. The expensive tailored suits were banished, replaced by clothes sourced specifically for their worn, faded look, a testament to hardship, not fashion. Shoes, deliberately scuffed and showing the miles of an imagined struggle, felt foreign on his feet. The carefully applied makeup, the subtle lines etched around his eyes, spoke of sleepless nights and worry. The wig, though slightly itchy, effectively obscured his telltale hairline. He wasn't aiming for a cartoonish caricature. He wanted to melt into the background, to become just another face in the crowd, a ghost in a well-heeled world. The chosen venue, the Copper Elm in Santa Fe, was a deliberate stroke, a place where the air thrummed with the quiet confidence of wealth, where hushed conversations revolved around art acquisitions and venture capital. It was a world away from the factories and launch pads he usually inhabited, the perfect crucible for his social experiment. Elon, cloaked in anonymity, was about to step into a reality where his achievements meant absolutely nothing, where his reputation was irrelevant. He was entering a world governed by first impressions, a world that often judges a book by its tattered cover. The heavy oak door of the Copper Elm swung inward with a hushed sigh, and Elon stepped across the threshold. The immediate shift in atmosphere was palpable. The low hum of polite conversation seemed to falter, replaced by a subtle tension. The air, thick with the aroma of expensive wine and roasted meats, suddenly felt heavy with unspoken judgment. He shuffled in, head slightly bowed, his gaze deliberately avoiding direct eye contact. The silence felt thick enough to cut with a knife. Eyes narrowed, some in blatant distaste, others with a flicker of uncomfortable curiosity, like spotting a stray animal that had wandered into their manicured garden. His approach to the reception desk felt like traversing a hostile border. The hostess, a woman whose practiced smile radiated the calculated warmth of a seasoned gatekeeper, barely glanced up. "Good evening," Elon mumbled, the words deliberately roughened, carrying the timbre of someone used to being ignored. "Table for one, if you have one." The practiced smile faltered, just for a fraction of a second, replaced by a flicker of something akin to distaste. Her eyes flicked over his attire, a silent inventory of his perceived lack of worth. "I'm so sorry, sir," she said, her voice coated in a saccharine sweetness that didn't quite reach her eyes. "We're completely booked this evening. Perhaps you could try again another time." Her gaze drifted pointedly towards the door, a clear, unspoken dismissal. He could see several empty tables bathed in the soft glow of strategically placed lighting, their pristine surfaces untouched. The lie was blatant, delivered with an almost casual cruelty that stung more than he anticipated. It wasn't just the rejection. It was the utter lack of consideration, the ease with which he was deemed unworthy. This, he thought grimly, is what it feels like. He lingered for a moment, a knot of discomfort tightening in his stomach. The whispers started, subtle at first, then growing bolder. A busboy, polishing glasses with undue enthusiasm, nudged a colleague and gestured subtly in Elon's direction, a smirk playing on his lips. The colleague snickered, their eyes meeting Elon's for a fleeting, dismissive second. A well-dressed couple, their faces etched with the boredom of too much comfort, exchanged a look of thinly veiled disgust. The woman clutched her designer handbag tighter, as if his mere presence might somehow contaminate it. Honestly, the man muttered, loud enough for Elon to hear, some people just have no sense of decorum. He could feel the weight of their disapproval pressing down on him, a tangible manifestation of their prejudice. Then, a break in the clouds. A ray of genuine warmth in the Arctic chill of the restaurant's disdain. Sophia, a young waitress, her face radiating an earnest sincerity that stood in stark contrast to the carefully curated indifference of her colleagues. She noticed him standing awkwardly near the entrance, the palpable discomfort radiating off him like a heat haze. She saw the way the hostess had dismissed him, the snickers and stares that followed him. Despite the pointed glances from her co-workers and the almost visible force field of disapproval emanating from some patrons, Sophia made a decision. Her heart pounded against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the quiet disapproval of the room, but she pushed past her apprehension. "Sir," she asked, her voice soft but clear, a beacon of kindness in the judgmental atmosphere. "Are you all right? Can I help you with something?" Her genuine concern was a surprise, a jolt of unexpected humanity. Elon, caught off guard by her approach, managed a small, hesitant nod. Yes, I was hoping for a table, but—" He trailed off, gesturing subtly towards the now-occupied reception desk. Sophia's gaze flickered towards her colleagues, then back to Elon. A brief internal battle played out on her face, the fear of repercussions versus the innate desire to help someone in need. The latter one. "Actually," she said, her voice gaining a newfound firmness, "we do have a table available. It's just in a quieter part of the restaurant." She offered a small, encouraging smile, a silent apology for the earlier treatment. "Please follow me." A fresh wave of murmurs rippled through the room, sharper now, laced with open disapproval. He could feel the collective gaze boring into Sophia's back as she led him towards a small, somewhat secluded table near the back. As she pulled out a chair for him, Mark, a waiter with an air of self-importance, intercepted them, his face a mask of thinly veiled annoyance. "Sophia, what do you think you're doing?" he hissed, his voice low but laced with menace. "We're slammed. We don't have time for this." He gestured dismissively towards Elon, his eyes narrowing with contempt. Sophia stood her ground, her small frame surprisingly rigid. "He's a customer, Mark," she said, her voice unwavering despite the tremor of anxiety beneath it. "And it's our job to serve all customers." The tension was palpable, a silent standoff in the middle of the busy restaurant. Elon felt a surge of gratitude for her unexpected bravery, mixed with a pang of guilt for putting her in this position. Even the seated patrons felt emboldened to voice their disapproval. The woman with the diamond, her face contorted in disdain, summoned Sophia with an imperious wave of her hand. "Excuse me," she drawled, her voice dripping with condescension. "Are you seriously wasting your time on that? Some people just don't belong in civilized places." The cruelty was blatant, unapologetic. Elon watched, his fists clenching, as Sophia, though visibly flustered, met the woman's gaze with surprising steadiness. "Everyone deserves to be treated with respect, ma'am," she replied, her voice quiet but firm. The woman scoffed and turned away, but the seed of defiance had been planted. The injustice was stark, the casual disregard for human dignity laid bare. Elon, despite his carefully constructed disguise, felt a surge of anger, not for himself, but for Sophia, who was risking her standing, her very livelihood, for a stranger. Elon finished his simple meal, the taste of the food overshadowed by the bitter aftertaste of the experience. He watched Sophia navigate the room, her genuine smile a stark contrast to the forced politeness of her colleagues. He saw the furtive glances, heard the hushed criticisms that followed her like a shadow. He understood the price she was paying for her compassion. Taking a slow, deliberate breath, Elon stood up. The scraping of the chair against the polished floor seemed amplified in the sudden hush that fell over the immediate vicinity. He reached up, his hands trembling slightly, and slowly, meticulously, removed the ill-fitting wig. The effect was instantaneous. A collective gasp rippled through the room, starting as a low murmur of disbelief and escalating into a wave of stunned whispers. Heads snapped around, conversations died mid-sentence, cutlery clattered against plates. Eyes widened in disbelief, jaws dropped in astonishment. The subtle lines of hardship etched on his face seemed to vanish, replaced by the undeniably familiar, sharp features of Elon Musk. The transformation wasn't just physical. It was a shift in perception, a sudden understanding of the monumental mistake they had made. A profound silence descended upon the copper elm, a silence so thick you could hear the blood rushing in your ears. The hostess, who had so confidently declared the restaurant fully booked, looked as though she might spontaneously combust from sheer mortification. Mark, the condescending waiter, stood frozen mid-stride, his mouth agape, a half-eaten breadstick clutched limply in his hand. Even the woman with the enormous diamond, her face pale with shock, stared with an uncharacteristic lack of composure. Elon's voice, now clear and resonant, filled the stunned silence. "I came here tonight with a question," he began, his gaze sweeping across the sea of bewildered faces. "I wanted to understand, firsthand, how people would treat someone who appeared to have nothing. What I encountered was a stark and sobering lesson in human nature." His voice, though calm, carried a weight of profound disappointment. The snap judgments, the dismissiveness, the outright contempt, it was a disheartening display. He paused, his gaze softening as it settled on Sophia, who stood near the back, her face a mixture of shock, dawning understanding, and a hint of nervous anticipation. "But then," Elon continued, a genuine warmth entering his tone, "there was Sophia. She didn't see the clothes, the disguise, the carefully constructed facade of poverty. She saw a fellow human being in need. She offered kindness where others offered scorn. She stood up for fundamental human decency in the face of open ridicule." He reached into his inner pocket and pulled out his checkbook. The click of the pen uncapping seemed deafening in the silence. Writing swiftly, he tore out a check and held it aloft, the amount clearly visible. $50,000, he announced, his voice ringing with sincerity. "For Sophia. For reminding us all what it means to be truly human." The collective gasp this time was louder, more visceral. Sophia's hand flew to her mouth, tears welling in her eyes, a mixture of disbelief and overwhelming gratitude. A wave of murmurs, no longer scornful but filled with awe and a dawning sense of their own failings, spread through the restaurant. The atmosphere had undergone a seismic shift. The arrogance and disdain that had permeated the air moments before were replaced by a palpable sense of shame, embarrassment, and a frantic scramble for redemption. Eyes darted downwards, avoiding his gaze, the weight of their earlier behavior suddenly crushing. The immediate aftermath was telling. Mark, his face a mask of shame, approached Sophia, his voice barely a whisper as he offered a mumbled apology. The hostess, her composure shattered, tried to stammer out an explanation, her carefully constructed facade of professionalism crumbling around her. Elon simply offered a curt nod, the unspoken message clear. The woman with the diamond, her usual haughty demeanor completely absent, suddenly found intense interest in the intricate patterns of her tablecloth. The power dynamic had been utterly inverted. Sophia, the humble waitress, was now the undisputed center of attention, the recipient of admiration and a grudging respect. As the initial shock subsided, Elon addressed the still stunned patrons, his message resonating with a newfound power. "Kindness," he stated, his voice carrying a quiet authority, "isn't some grand, performative gesture reserved for special occasions. It's about the countless small choices we make every single day. It's about how we treat the people we perceive as being less than us. Because, let me assure you," his gaze swept across the room, Appearances can be profoundly deceptive. We are all, at our core, just human beings deserving of basic dignity and respect. He emphasized that compassion shouldn't be a commodity reserved for the privileged, but a fundamental principle guiding all human interaction. It was a call to examine their own biases, to look beyond the superficial and see the inherent worth in every individual. The impact on Sophia's life was immediate and transformative. The $50,000 wasn't just money. It was a validation of her inherent goodness, a tangible reward for her courage. She enrolled in a prestigious culinary academy, her lifelong dream of becoming a chef finally within reach. Her story became more than a local anecdote. It became a viral sensation, a heartwarming tale of compassion triumphing over prejudice. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was an inspiration, a living testament to the extraordinary power of ordinary kindness. The Copper Elm, once a bastion of exclusivity, underwent a profound internal transformation. The incident forced a painful but necessary introspection. The management instituted mandatory empathy training for all staff, emphasizing the importance of treating every individual with dignity, regardless of their appearance or socioeconomic status. The dismissive hostess was reassigned to a back-office role, and Mark, humbled by the experience, became a vocal advocate for treating all customers with respect and understanding. The restaurant, once known for its elitism, gradually earned a new reputation, a place where genuine hospitality, not superficial pretension, was the guiding principle. The tale of Elon's undercover foray and Sophia's unwavering compassion resonated far beyond the walls of the Copper Elm. It ignited conversations on social media, fueled news cycles, and sparked introspection about societal biases and the casual cruelties we often inflict on those deemed different. For those who witnessed the event firsthand, and for the millions who encountered the story online, it served as a potent reminder that true character isn't measured in wealth or status, but in the quiet acts of kindness that define our humanity. Elon Musk, through his unconventional experiment, had not only exposed a flaw in the social fabric but had also illuminated the transformative power of empathy, demonstrating that even a single act of compassion can shatter perceptions and leave a lasting impact on the world.